Two-time is a survivor that needs no introduction. Some of us absolutely love them, while others view them as the most annoying survivor to play against. And although I myself main two-time, I do understand the problems. With that said, I want to have a knock at rebalancing two-time to make them a little more fair, while still keeping them worth playing. I will be splitting this video up into 3 categories. Category 1, understanding two-time, getting a bit of a just on their abilities so you understand a little more why two-time's broken. Category 2, why two-time is so unbalanced. Here I'll be pointing out all the flaws with two-time and what really makes two-time an unfair survivor. And then finally, category 3, how I personally would rebalance two-time, which is pretty self-explanatory. With that said and out of the way, let's jump into the first category. Two-time has a base HP of 80, making him a glass cannon of sorts. They fall into the Sentinel classification of survivors, which means two-time's main priority should be helping out the team. Two-time, like most Sentinels, has a handful of abilities and passives that assist with this, starting off with the most basic to understand, this being Ablation. Ablation is two-time's only passive. It's this little meter you see whenever you stab the killer. Depending on what type of stab you hit is how much ablation it fills out. 33% for front stabs and 50% for back stabs. Once the ablation meter is filled out, two-time can revive if killed, so long as two-time plays the ritual. Speaking of ritual, it's the first ability we'll be talking about. It's very simple and straightforward. Two-time can place it anywhere in the map, and it's where they revive if either killed or left for LMS. If two-time is killed with full ablation, they'll respawn with 40 HP. However, if two-time is left for LMS, they revive with a whopping 110 HP. Anyways, let's hop into something a little more complex. Two-time's dagger is probably one of the more complex stuns to understand and master. It requires decent timing and good ping to use it properly. There are 2 types of stabs two-time can perform: front stabs and back stabs. Front stabs will give the killer helpless 1 for 1 second while healing two-time by 10 HP. It will also add 33% to their ablation meter. This is super easy to land and not worth it at all. The only times you'll ever want to go for a front stab is if the killer is about to kill you, or to maybe save a survivor, but you really just don't want to go for them. Backstabs are infinitely better. Speaking of backstabs, you'll need to hit the killer directly on their back to perform it properly. Once a backstab is landed, it will stun the killer while also healing two-time by 20 HP. A backstab will also fill out ablation by 50%. This is the type of stab you should always aim for with two-time. It's a little hard to get good at, but it's the most OP stun in the game by far. The only contestant is Chance's gun. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, the cooldown is only 30 seconds. Finally, we have Crouch. This will allow two-time to crouch down, giving them invisibility 3 and undetectable 1 for about 10 seconds. You can also use Crouch and the dagger to lunge pretty far, allowing for some pretty clutch saves. I believe this covers all of two-time's abilities / stats. So now it's time I explain to you just how fucking broken all of this is. Let's start off with ablation. You only need 2 backstabs to unlock a revive, which is pretty outrageous in my own opinion. This almost forces a killer to target a good two-time if they don't want to get punished by revive. And this doesn't even mean that they're not going to get their revive, because most of the time, with how short two-time stun cooldown is, they'll still end up getting it. Seeing how I'm a decent two-time main, ablation itself isn't really broken, but with how much you get from dagger, I think that needs to be nerfed a little. Ritual can also be a little unfair, but not really. I mean, like, you can use it to glitch out of maps, but that is bug abuse and it is bannable, so I highly recommend not doing that. But it can be a lot more unfair in LMS if it's far enough from the killer. It wastes about 10 to 30 seconds depending on the map. And you can also parry this with crouch to basically get a free LMS. Finally, you can hide it under the ground, so long as there's slight elevation, which I guess isn't really that broken, but it's a minor annoyance, seeing how the killer doesn't even have a chance to find it, or really understand where you'll be after they kill you. And then there's Dagger, arguably the most ping-based ability in this game. Let's say I'm getting 30 ping, and the killer's getting 50. Although it may not seem like much, that's still more than enough for me to get a backstab while they're looking straight at me on their end. And this is a super common problem. Ping can make playing against a 2-time the worst experience of your life. I know they recently reworked hitboxes to make it a little more fair, I guess, to make it a little more understandable and a little more fair, but that's had just about zero impact on unfair backstabs, apart from the fact that you can't do this anymore. This also works the other way around though. 2-time can get a perfect backstab, absolutely beautiful, 10 out of 10, but the killer is getting less ping and has already turned around on their end, which means it was a front stab, despite the fact that it was a 100% backstab. Having a stun that depends solely on hitting a specific part of another player is a pretty bad idea in general, because of ping. But apart from ping related issues, 2-time also has a super easy to land stun in general. Even without crouching, you have a slight lunge, which allows for easy stabs on the killer. Arguably one of the easiest stuns to land in the game, apart from maybe, I don't know, Shidletsky. Finally, there is crouch, which can make LMS with a slightly competent 2-time absolute hell. They can time it right to avoid the highlight of LMS. This isn't that bad, seeing how most killers have an ESP that makes this inefficient, but it's still worth the mention. Cool kid mains, beware. Well, some of these are not the worst, like Ablation being so cheap to fill, or Crouch and LMS. Once you add it all up, it's pretty insane, and can make playing 2-time one of the easiest experiences of your life, especially if you have a good PC with good Wi-Fi. This means you'll always be getting decent ping, and most likely decent frames as well. With that said, I do think there are good ways to counter/fix these issues, which I'll be proposing in the next category. It's time I tell you how I'd personally nerf 2-time's abilities to make him a more fair survivor to play against while also keeping him fun to play. I'll be attempting to balance 2-time out to the best of my abilities. Or, in other terms, I will be attempting to rebalance 2-time. Something important to know before we dive into this is I just think these are some interesting ideas for individual nerfs on his abilities. I will, however, just for fun's sake, explain how they'd all work together at the end of the nerfing process. With that said, like all other sections, we'll be looking at Ablation first. Ablation is a very straightforward passive and not that hard to understand, which also means it's not that hard to nerf. With that said, I think the first thing we'll be doing is limiting how much is filled by stabs depending on how many 2-times are in the server. Let's say there's more than 2 2-times alive. It will now take 4 regular stabs or 3 backstabs to fill Ablation. This will stack higher up depending on how many 2-times are in the server, or to be exact, are alive at that moment in time. This is a list I made that will help you better understand how this would work. I think this would help limit how many people are using 2-times in a round, similarly to characters like Elliot or Dusakar. It would be a big disadvantage if the lobby had, for say, 5 2-times. This would heavily impact your abilities to use Revive, and in large enough groups makes Revive completely useless. Ritual is something that I don't really have problems with. My biggest issues with it is the fact you can glitch out of maps by using it. Fixing this makes it pretty fair in my opinion. Maybe making it so you can't hide it under floors would also make it fair. or at least a little more fair, but I don't really care that much about that. It's not really a big issue, like I said. I think if it ever did get nerfed, or at least reworked, maybe make it so either A, you have to choose one of the player spawns for it to go to, or B, make it require ablation to place, which means you have to first stab the killer to even unlock the ability. Now we get to the big guns. 2x dagger is the most broken stun in the game for two simple reasons, one being frames and the other being ping. Sadly, like most people, I am just not smart enough to fix this issue. Or at least, I think most people. There might be a good video out there on this. I don't know. The only idea I've been able to come up with for fixing the stab system is to just make the dagger stun in general. Whether or not it's a front stab or a back stab, or maybe don't make it stun, just make it give longer helpless and slowness. Anything to make dagger a little less OP. But that's really no fun. That kind of ruins the point of using 2-time. So instead of targeting this issue, I will instead target the cooldown, which is only 30 seconds. 30 seconds on the most broken stun is insane. I think this should at least be 40 seconds. And maybe just like with ablation, make it so that the amount of HP you gain from stabs is nerfed depending on how many 2-times are alive at the time. Once again, I'll be posting a list on the screen to better help you all understand what I mean. Let's say there's 3 2-times in a match that are alive. Then you'd miss out on 2 HP for front stabs and 4 HP for back stabs. This will stack just like my little chart shows. Finally, I think during LMS, 2-times should not be able to gain HP from their dagger. This is basically allowing Elliot to eat his own pizzas in LMS. It's pretty unfair to the killer, and is why 2-time is almost never left for LMS. This is all I could really think of for 2-times dagger. It's still going to be unfair for higher ping players, but it's just about the best you can do without reworking the whole ability. Finally, we have Crouch, which, like Ritual, I have no issues with. At most, I think it should not be able to counter the start of LMS, but that's kind of it. The reason I say this is because 2-time is already the second best, or even the best character for LMS. Being able to self-heal, stun, and hide from killer takes all other classes of characters and applies them to one singular character. Now, this is what we end up with after everything I just explained. Ablation now stacks depending on how many 2-times are in a match. Dagger takes 40 seconds to use. Self-healing is also limited depending on how many 2-times are in a match that are currently alive. Ritual can only be placed at spawn locations, but no longer appears. 2-time can no longer heal in LMS. And 2-time can't hide during the start of LMS. I believe this makes 2-time a little more balanced and will also make other characters more worth playing. However, these are just some ideas I created. There's probably some better solutions, and I was just kind of going crazy while making some of these. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is all a concept. I really just want to see 2-time be nerfed to the point where I don't have to worry about them in groups that are over 2 in size. I think 2-time stacking needs to be nerfed. At least nerf 2-time, depending on how many are in the server. I think that would be the best course of action to keeping 2-time a decent survivor, but limiting how many people are actively using it at a time. This is my first crack at Forsaken content. So sorry if I didn't get all of the facts or anything. I'm just trying to branch away from Piggy, seeing how the game is going downhill, and I just really don't like the Piggy community that much. I love the core audience around my channel, but a lot of Piggy YouTubers are pretty bad figures, and I just don't like them. You can still expect some Piggy uploads, but I also want to start making more Forsaken content as well. With that said, this has been Wendigo, and I am going to sleep now.